I have UFO clips for people out there. This is concerning Dr. Stephen Greer, who was on the Alex Jones show. Now, for people,
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, Dr. Stephen Greer, he's put out movies like Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which we covered on here. In 2017, he put out a movie called Unacknowledged, which kind of dug into the unacknowledged secret access projects of what the quasi-government private sector are doing with UFO technology. And he has a new movie that is out, and I believe that is called Hoaxed or Cosmic Hoax. Let me double-check that. But he was on Alex Jones talking about his new movie. And he did go into some interesting little tidbits here. So I will play some of these clips. I will provide a link to the brand new Stephen Greer movie that is on YouTube, but some people have a tough time finding it. But I'll provide a link in there. But in this first clip, Alex kind of probes him about the current state of the world.
Did you use probe deliberately?
I slid it in there, just to see. But Alex talked to Dr. Greer about COVID, the current state of the world, just to kind of get his thoughts and feelings on everything that's going on. So here it is, Dr. Greer and Alex Jones.
Before we get into the film and all the big DNI report and all of it, first, I know you like to stay on subject, but this whole global government, Bill Gates, the inoculation, the fact that they admit that people that have been injected are the ones that are mainly getting sick, from your sources and your connections, what is going on here?
Well, the main thing is that, the abuse of power that's been associated with this pandemic, aside from the fact this almost certainly was a biowarfare weapon created in the Wuhan lab, is the way they're beta testing to see how well they can control the populace. Because what they really have done is to issue all kinds of confusing edicts from central state actors, and then see if the populace will genuflect and bow down and kowtow to these authorities. And I think that anyone who cares about freedom has to look at these excesses of abuse of power that have been happening. And that's something that I think it was by design. I think this was done to see, let's see if we can beta test through fear, a constant drumbeat of fear. I'm an emergency doctor, and I can see how fear can affect people in so many ways. And it's been very, very effective. And so you have people doing completely irrational things, excuse me, and those things are very dangerous, not only to people's individual health, like children, very young age, not being in school, having to wear masks when they have very low risk of either spreading it or getting the virus. And yet people are complying, and they're measuring, in my opinion, they're seeing how effective that is. How much can they get away with?
A lot of throat clearing in there, but some good information in there. I mean,
Steven's like, I'll call in just to sit in the background and clear his throat.
That's kind of what we suspect already,
Yeah, Greer always brings interesting stuff to the table. So, I mean, some people like him, some people hate him, but he brings interesting information.
Yeah, he is a bit of a divisive person in the UFO community. I know Craig Carlwood challenged him on a few subjects when it comes to some of the C5 or protocols and the channeling, I think, that was going on. I don't remember the specifics on what Craig Carlwood of the Higher Side Chat challenged Greer on, but I know he did do that. I'll look that up. And so, yeah, Dr. Greer is a divisive person in the realm, but he's smart. He's well-spoken. He does have some declassified documents. He has put together a good version of the UFO events in the way he puts it together. Makes sense. So he's got his story about what he thinks is going on. So what we're going to talk about here is the covert access projects, and he'll go into his film a little bit. So he's going to start with the origin of the film, which is called Cosmic Hoax. And you can just type that into YouTube or check the link in the description. I'll provide a link to it. And it's for free on YouTube right now. He's going to talk about the origins of this movie. Here we go.
Well, the genesis of the film was when I got a heads up that the director of national intelligence and their minions, people like Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and Nick Pope and others, were consistently saying three provable, damnable lies. And let me go through these very quickly. The documentary is more extensive, but number one, they say that we don't know what these objects are. We do. Some of them, very few of them, are actually extraterrestrial vehicles. Most of the ones that are being shown in the media, if you look at all those are all ours. Those are from Lockheed Skunk Works. They're from my uncle's company, Northrop Grumman. They're contractors that are making so-called anti-gravity free energy devices. And that's a bigger secret than the ET issue for a reason I'll get into in a moment. And then the second big lie is we don't have anything that can move this way. And they show these images. This one you're showing right now obviously has nav lights on it. It's a triangle, anti-grav, silent, made by Northrop Grumman. And we have known this for decades. I'll give your viewers a date. October 1954. That is when we mastered gravity control and began making man-made things that look like UFOs. This particular video you're showing now is a Lockheed Martin from the Skunk Works up in the high desert of California. So are there actually ET craft? Yes, much more rarely seen. They're using these man-made ones to try to create this other third lie, the national security threat. So in every
Stay right there, and it's incredibly obvious when they all swarm our ships and nuclear bases.
So he's talking about Project Bluebeam there. A managed control and the players involved. And this is what we've been talking about for a while, and a lot of other people, is that Lou Elizondo, the former head of ATIP, or he claims to be the head of ATIP, I think there's some people that have challenged his credibility there. If he actually was the leader of the ATIP program, I know he had some authority within that program, but whether or not he headed it up is another matter. But I know Dark Journalist is all over this. Richard Doland, who was a prominent researcher in the community, he is tepid. He is of the opinion whether this is a manufactured scenario, like a blue beam scenario, or it's real, it is still a form of disclosure. That is Richard Dolan's kind of paraphrase position on this.
So he's of the opinion that any news is good news.
Yeah.
As long as people are talking about it, even if it's deliberate disinformation, it's people are talking about it and bringing the general topic to the forefront.
That's correct. Like just having a public discussion about UFOs, whether it's contrived or man-made UFOs, it's still a positive step in the right direction of some sort of disclosure. Whereas I believe Dark Journalist and some of us are like, well, this is Project Bluebeam. This is possibly not going to be for our highest good here, and it's going to be used as some form of control, deceit. And I believe Greer kind of goes into this a little bit here. And, throughout this entire interview, Alex was saying this.
Keep going, please.
Keep going, please.
Keep going, please.
He said that a few times. I got one or two of those. So this is Greer talking
he was trying to get him to drag out his segment a little bit longer because he was still trying to get that last jalapeno down there.
I think he was eating, actually, honestly, like today during the show, I don't know if Gitz can get this, but it sounded like Alex Jones was drinking some sort of like glass with ice in it. Like he was like either drinking like whiskey on the rocks or a Coca-Cola, something like that. I don't know, but you could hear him drinking a glass with ice in it. So it was kind of annoying, but I was like, I like that Foley work. It's pretty good.
Well, so it's not ice; it's frozen jalapeno juice that he then puts directly into his Jim Beam.
Yes, of course. How could I not see that? Well, this is Greer talking about the Covert Action Project. Here we go.
So what has happened is that these covert programs have evolved very strongly to the point now they've decided to pull the trigger on officially through the government releasing these sort of reports, and the mainstream media working lockstep with the intelligence community are now putting out this false narrative that there's a threat to the national security. Now, the only part of that that's true is that these covert, human, illegal projects are a threat to the national security. The interstellar civilizations are certainly not. They are so advanced that if they were a threat, we'd all be gone by now. Believe me. I mean, these technologies, you're dealing with interstellar transportation capabilities. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not worried about us. I think the whole modern era of sightings happened because we started detonating atomic and thermonuclear weapons, which ended up being very disruptive to dimensions that go beyond what we think of as normal 3D space-time.
I think that's the most important point he brought up there early, was that if there is an extraterrestrial threat and they have this kind of technology, which is hundreds of years, thousands of years more advanced than us, they could wipe us out in the instant. You know, the United States Air Force or the Pentagon can declare them a threat and try to build some sort of defense system against them. But I think it's foolish to think that they would be successful in the near term if they haven't already had a jump start on this technology, like back in the 50s from some sort of crash retrieval. And that the fear is the blue beam here is that it's going to be a managed operation where it's going to be drawn out a fake alien war, fake UFOs, and engineered aliens that are completely contrived. When in reality, that if there was a real extraterrestrial race out there, we'd be gone in a second. Where I think they're more interested in observing us, and it might not even be extraterrestrial. Like I have read through this entire book. I'm holding up this book. It is the field guide to extraterrestrials. I read the entire thing on my TikTok channel. You can check it out. Just look up for Midnight Mike. I'll post a link somewhere. But I read this entire book.
You read it like 2 minutes at a time?
I spent 1 minute per case. So I paraphrase like each case by 1 minute. And I hit the biggest points here and like the most important.
Oh, okay. I see
topics.
what you mean. You went through the book on your TikTok channel. When you said you read it, I thought you were just like reading like 2 minutes at a shot.
No. 1 minute per story.
All right.
And there are so many different encounters with aliens. I would say if each one of these encounters are to believe at face value, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ETs. Or these entities are using our expectation and our consciousness as a launching pad to manifest themselves to us in particular ways. There are commonalities with them all, but there are little differences in all these little stories. And there is a hierarchical structure to all this. It's super complex, and I'll try to dig into it a little bit more. My thoughts on how complex this issue is, because not only like a lot of people you can go into like John Keel and definitely Jack Filet. They're kind of on the same page there, where there's like a one source to this thing, and it's paranormal in nature. It's not just technology. And Greer knows this as well too. He is on this kick, so that's why he takes out people to the desert to do the meditations to contact something that might be supernatural. It might go beyond just somebody from Mars. This is supernatural. And now what Greer gets into next, I did not expect him to, but he mentions this, and it just so happens there is a relevant story about this in current events. But here, this is Dr. Greer talking about Project Looking Glass. Sorry.
man shortly after that who said, we have given at least $10 million to over 10,000 people to secure their cooperation.
Well, it's the same way they've paid billions to tens of thousands of influencers to push the vaccine. That's a low-level example of this. Not to toot our own horn like, oh, we're special, a lot of the devils want us. Why do you think they try to recruit you and people like me and a lot of others? They just see, okay, that's a prominent person, that's a smart person, we want them, or what's happening there?
Well, there is a project known as Operation Looking Glass and Red Light, where they can sort of gaze into the future with some of these technologies, and they often will see someone could be a problem to them in the future. And so those people, they'll try to target and get their cooperation through all kinds of inducements and threats. I mean, I've had threats, I've had inducements, bribes.
Well, then why didn't they kill us? Why, like you and I, like similar things have happened. Why didn't they kill us?
Well, I almost did die. As you know, 3 people on my team simultaneously got metastatic cancer, myself included. I'm the only one that survived.
That's right. Let's talk about that with Dr. Stephen Greer when we come back. This is very serious. They also can give you these pneumonias that, again, mutate and are harmless after they kill you. It's pretty rough, folks. And there's a God in this universe, too, folks. Don't forget that. Powerful information, Dr. Stephen Greer. And then your phone calls, Jill and Mel and Deborah and JD and Travis and James and Oshawa. We'll go to every single one of you after our guest leaves us in
Kevin,
1 second.
David,
Stay with us.
Tyler, Daryl, Joseph, Paul, Gordon,
Brian,
Todd, James,
Russell,
Forrest,
Mike,
Charles,
Katie,
Josh,
Brian,
Jeff, Jason, Jenny, James, and Lynn.
I
Only
love
taking
this.
calls from people called Big.
Yeah, only Big Luther. If you got a big in your name, you're going straight to the front of the line.
He just reads off all the people that he's going to get to the first 2 and then never the rest.
Yeah, exactly. He basically says, "I'm going to go through all these calls." He never does. He lets one guy through for like 5-10 minutes. That's what we do on this show. So I sympathize with him. But Greer mentioned Project Looking Glass in there, which is a rumored piece of technology that secret government groups can use this technology to peer into the future. And I'm just paraphrasing what I remember here, in that they're looking into potential timelines. And so based upon a decision or a world event, they look into the looking glass at that point in time and see how it lays out. But since the timelines are ever changing and everyone's decision probably could change the timeline, I don't see how accurate that could be. But since he brought this up, I'm going to bring this up on screen over here because it's relevant and timely. And this headline is, the Pentagon is experimenting with using artificial intelligence to see days in advance. Not necessarily Project Looking Glass, but I think they've gotten so good at collecting data that they know what everyone's going to do, when they're going to do it, and that they can just make really good guesses at what humans and groups can do based upon certain algorithms. So I'll read a little bit of this, then we're going to go straight back to UFOs. But this is, let's see here. In addition to these overreaching objectives, the chief architect officer also conducted experiments of key enabling technology, apply artificial intelligence to enable decision advantage through software at the strategic and operational and tactical level in partnership with the Joint AI Centers, augmenting Pacific Air Force's deployed communication team with commercial off-the-shelf networking technologies and commercial communication pathways to boost bandwidth, stabilize connectivity, and increase network resiliency. And they just, I mean, it's not like what any other government or organization want to do. They want to predict the future so they can better prepare for it. They want to, and this is not unlike what we talked about and covered in 2016 with this headline: the CIA can anticipate social unrest 3 to 5 days out in some cases. This comes from nextgov.com. This was originally like on Engadget and some tech blogs, but the agency's use of sophisticated algorithms and analytics have significantly improved its ability to predict events. And this was back in 2016. So I suspect they probably had these algorithms in technology for much longer. The Pentagon's coming out saying they got AI to do this kind of stuff. The CIA has been bragging about it for the longest time. So maybe they do have some looking glass kind of technology. Maybe not necessarily like all mystical and supernatural, but some really good algorithms. Not that far-fetched. The CIA is doing it. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. So as I guess just with the two things you brought up here, the idea of leveraging social media, especially, but general, internet traffic and whatnot, to kind of see what may or may not happen in a couple of days. I 100% believe in that one. I mean, that's the sort of thing where you could look at enough patterns and identify enough things that you could probably start predicting some pretty general behaviors. Now, the Project Looking Glass, which is the idea that they're going to create lenses that could functionally look forward in time a certain amount of time, similar to the way that telescopes basically look back in time, because you're looking at light that is coming, that is taking that long to get to the lens and to the sensor. But what's interesting about the Project Looking Glass is that was the conceit of the Philip K. Dick story, Paycheck, in the 50s, I think it was, that they were building a viewing, it's basically the same exact idea as what Greer described there, but building a viewing apparatus that could look forward in time and catch certain moments, and then you could take these moments and put them together to actually build out kind of a narrative. So it's kind of an interesting idea.
So whether or not they have that technology, Project Looking Glass, or using really good algorithms to figure out what's going on in the future, they know how people are most likely going to react to this UFO information. They know probably what the populace is going to do based upon what type of information is released. It's been a slow simmer, and honestly, there hasn't been much of a reaction since June. That UFO report came out. That 180 days report came out in June, and no one gives a darn about it. Really,
it doesn't. Also, like what 9 pages of nothing.
Yeah, but a lot of it wasn't. It was just a bunch of fluff. There was really no.
Well, we kind of knew that. It'd
there.
be like anything that's going to be good is going to get redacted anyway. So,
but regardless, like this should be some damn exciting stuff. But no one gives a darn. It's not making any kind of wave.
This is damn exciting stuff.
No, no one cares about it.
Rip Torn thinks so.
And so they probably, through their quasi Project Looking Glass technology, they probably knew it would be a bit of a dud because it's supposed to be a slow burn. And also, they probably know how people will react to certain COVID policies. You can probably bet your bottom dollar on that. Bet your bottom dollar on that one, people.
Bet your bottom dollar. There's an old saying.